strengthening cooperation between Ethiopia and the international humanitarian organizations, according to Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Demeke, who's in Geneva to participate at the Global Refugee Forum, commended ICRC for its multifaceted activities in humanitarian support in Ethiopia and called for more support in this regard. President Mirjana Spoljaric said the ICRC is proud of the collaboration it has with various institutions in Ethiopia and reiterated the commitment of the ICRC to work with Ethiopia. The Ministry of Education has signed a memorandum of understanding that fosters education collaboration with its Italian counterpart. The MOU was signed by Education Minister Professor Berhanu Negga and Italian Ministry of Education and Merit Giuseppe Valditara. The agreement is expected to establish strategic cooperation both in general and higher education sectors, according to the Ministry of Education. During the signing ceremony, Professor Berhanu highlighted the reform activities of the education sector and the efforts made to provide equitable education to citizens regardless of their financial background. Education and Merit Minister Giuseppe Valditara said that the ministry would cooperate with the Ethiopian Ministry of Education in the fields of technical and vocational education training, TVET, language, culture, students and teachers exchanges. The government of Ethiopia has granted scholarships for 120 South Sudanese students in undergraduate, TVET, BSc, postgraduate and PhD programs for the academic year 2023-24. The Ethiopian Embassy in South Sudan bid farewell to students who are granted scholarships in Ethiopia. During the farewell ceremony organized by the Ethiopian Embassy in Juba, Ambassador Nabil Mahdi congratulated the students who were awarded the scholarship programs, according to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The ambassador assured the commitment of the government of Ethiopia to continue enhancing the bilateral relation in capacity building and human development. Adil Athanusio, Undersecretary of Ministry of Higher Education, Science and Technology of South Sudan, on his part, appreciated the continued support of the government of Ethiopia, especially in education and capacity building programs.
Located about 500 kilometers from Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, and about 35 kilometers downstream from the town of Bahir Dar and Lake Tana, is the mighty, mystical Blue Nile Falls. The locals call it Tisa Bay Falls and is believed to have some special powers. Tisa Bay means water that smokes. Ooh, I can see the water already.
This is blue.
Blue? This water is not blue.
Brown.
Brown Nile.
Because you know
Is this the Nile?
This is the blue Nile.
This is the Blue Nile.
Blue Nile.
Thank you. So I'm going to buy one of these for entertainment because he has entertained me even if I don't know how to blow it. Pick a nice one.
Welcome back. You're watching ABC World. Chief economist and professor at the Columbia University, Jeffrey D. Sachs, underlined that investing heavily in infrastructure and human capital is key to propel rapid growth in Ethiopia. While delivering the first of a series of Perspectives public lecture organized by the Office of the Prime Minister, Sachs declared that the next 40 years are Africa's years. The lecture shed light on perspectives of financing sustainable development challenges and prospects in a fragmented world. Our staff reporter, Goshu Meliso, attended the event and has compiled the following report. Take a look.
In a lecture he delivered to high-ranking government officials, diplomatic corps and other invited guests at the Science Museum, the professor highlighted Africa's growth prospects for the next 40 years. For him, the next 40 years will be Africa's years. Comparing Ethiopia with China, Professor Sachs noted that China achieved economic growth averaging around 10% per year of economic growth phenomena.
Africa's growth prospects for the next 40 years are extremely strong. Africa could achieve during the next 40-year period essentially what China achieved during the period from 1980 to 2020. Successful economic development at a high rate is based on investment in three categories: in human capital, especially education; second, in infrastructure, roads, rail, power, fiber, water and sanitation, ports; and third, in business capital. The single most important investment for Africa in the coming decade, bar none, is education. Get every child in school and enable them to stay in school through upper secondary. It's a heavy task, but don't let any child not have the chance to reach upper secondary completion.
Agriculture, tourism, mining and manufacturing are magnificent potentials to propel Ethiopia's growth, he pointed out.
Agriculture, mining, manufacturing, tourism, culture, everything is here. This is a most magnificent and beautiful country. It's got nature, every ecosystem. It's got ancient history. It's got modern development. It's got tourism. You name it, it's here. And it's got history that goes back 3,000 years. It's incredible what you find in this country. So for tourism, it is unbelievable.
Sachs expressed his strong belief that Ethiopia will sustain its 6.5 GDP growth during the next decades.
I do believe that Ethiopia has special strength because, first of all, large economies do have an intrinsic advantage. So as long as Ethiopia is peaceful internally and connected internally, it's going to have the advantage of a market of 120 million people, and that will continue to grow.
The professor highlighted that Ethiopia's homegrown economic agenda, agriculture initiatives and joining BRICS are reaffirmation that Ethiopia is on the right path. The ministers provided suggestions to the public lecture. Various ambassadors and diplomats based in Addis attended the public lecture. The event under the theme Financing Sustainable Development, Challenges and Prospects in a Fragmented World was organized by the Office of the Prime Minister.
And finally, Israel came under pressure Wednesday from its allies over its war in Gaza, with key backer the United States criticizing its bombing in response to the October 7 attacks as indiscriminate. Biden told a campaign event in Washington that Israel had most of the world supporting it after the Hamas attack, but they're starting to lose that support by the indiscriminate bombing that takes place. He said Biden also renewed calls for a two-state solution and said Israeli PM Netanyahu needs to replace his hardline government that opposes such a move. Shagao Yamato has more from France 24.
As Israel continues its relentless attacks on the Gaza Strip, its main backer, the United States, seems to have changed its tone since the beginning of the war. Washington is still funding the offensive and blocking calls for a ceasefire at the UN, but on Tuesday, President Joe Biden warned Israel that it was